Hey there. So today we're going to steam. It's a fundamental technique in cooking. It's one of the basic things that you would do when you're introducing any kind of cooking to food when you don't want to impart too much flavor. Steaming is great for those of you that have dietary restrictions, want to live a cleaner, healthier lifestyle, but aren't really interested in the taste of raw foods. Or some foods aren't really meant to be consumed raw to begin with. So steaming will cook your ingredient, break it down for you, but give you a much better, healthier outcome. We're eliminating butter, oil, salt. You can add those ingredients in the steaming process if you want to, but steaming is pretty much introducing steam from boiling water to vegetables. To be able to steam correctly, you need a couple of key ingredients. You need your vegetables, and then you need a pot of boiling water. If we look closely, you'll see what we call a colander. This colander is in between. Always be careful to use some sort of towel. Make sure it's dry. You have extremely high heat with steam, boiling water in a pot with a colander, and we're ready to go. Okay, but always have some sort of dry oven mitt, pot holder, or kitchen towel because this is extremely hot. Just because it's a simple technique that a lot of people may or may not use, it's extremely dangerous. You're working with a high flame, boiling water, super, super hot. This will scald, this will burn. Okay, so we're starting off with three very basic vegetables today for steaming. We have spinach, carrots, and asparagus. They're all going to cook differently. They're going to take different times and a little bit of a different finesse depending on the ingredient. We're going to start off with spinach, and you're going to see this is giant bowl shrink down to a very small portion. Each vegetable is going to lose different mass depending on how it's reacting with the steam. Leafy greens tend to cook down much faster and much more rapidly than an asparagus or a carrot. So we're going to start off by making our way to the steaming vessel with the spinach. First step, come over very carefully. Always have something in your hand. Remove the top. Check your water to make sure it's boiling. Also being very careful. Look in there. We've got this fantastic rolling boil. We'll place the colander in securely. Push the handle off to the side. Very delicately, careful not to bruise the spinach. Place it in here. This isn't going to take long with spinach. Spinach is going to leach its moisture. It's already starting to shrink down. We don't have to press too hard. Always want to be delicate. And if you look carefully, there's already cooking starting to transpire. That spinach is already losing its mass. You can already smell that cooked spinach flavor starting to take place. So we're going to cover it very quickly. This allows the steam to remain in the pot. We're steaming. You see that fogging going on. That's the steam being trapped in the pot. You're not cooking with the water. You're using the steam that's coming from the water to cook the spinach. Because spinach doesn't take that long, you can see it's already starting to wilt. You're getting your steam collecting. We're going to lift the lid. And we're going to stir. Already, that fast, not even a minute and a half in, all that spinach is yielding down to a nice small amount. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out. Very carefully place the lid down. And go ahead and very carefully retrieve the handle. I'm going to remove it completely. Bring it over. Place that into our plate. As you can see, this is the same plate that we used, and the spinach has decreased in size significantly. It's a lot of moisture in lettuces and leafy greens, so when you're introducing steam, it's going to naturally lose all of its moisture as the heat is introduced. At this point, if you want some flavor, a little bit of salt, go ahead and stir that up a little bit. The one thing you always want to do when you're cooking, whether it's steaming, grilling, broiling, roasting, or sauteing, is taste your product, understand what's going on, and see if it's where you want it to be. I'm going to taste. Tastes like some very well seasoned steamed spinach to me. So next up, we've got our spinach done. We're going to put this off to the side. I'm going to go with asparagus next. Asparagus is going to take longer than spinach. Asparagus is probably going to take about 5 to 6 minutes, depending on how much you're doing and how good your pot is and how good your burner is and how consistent the rolling boil is. So next up, we're going to take this asparagus over to the steamer. We're back over to the steamer. Always check, make sure it's a nice rolling boil. Be careful, don't touch it with your bare hand. We still have a nice rolling boil. So next up, we're going to very delicately place our asparagus into the steamer. You obviously have to make sure it's cut to the right size that it fits. And it's also important to make sure that you don't overload and put too much. You only want to put a couple of spears of asparagus at a time. We're going to be able to fit all these here today. But you don't want to do too many. If you stack them all too high and have a pile, they're not going to cook evenly. The steam is coming from the bottom, so you want to have everything evenly exposed to ensure that things are cooking evenly, correctly, and in the same time. So now that that's all delicately placed in there, we're going to go ahead and cover it up. And we're going to check back on our asparagus in a couple minutes. I'd say about 3 to 4 minutes and our asparagus should be ready. So it's been about 4 or 5 minutes, and it's time to check the asparagus and see if it's done steaming. Very carefully, always have something in your hand to protect your hand. Oven mitt. And have some surgical tongs, because as chefs are surgeons, a pair of tongs works great. Looking at them, feeling them, they feel nice and soft. Let's go ahead and pull them out. Always bring your platter to the food, not the food to the platter. That way if you drop anything, it drops right into the platter. And just like the spinach, if you want to impart some flavor and seasoning right now, this would be a great time to add some salt. It's time to bring it over to the board, give it a cut, give it a try. We've steamed our asparagus, gotta be careful, it's gonna be a little hot. But with any food, you should always taste what you're doing to make sure it's the correct result. Delicious. Great. Still has a little bit of texture to it, still a nice al dente. Well seasoned. And like I said before, if you don't want to season it, you can always omit. We're going to do some carrots. Carrots are denser, harder vegetable. They're going to take a little bit longer to cook. Spinach was obviously very quick. Asparagus was about 4 to 5 minutes. Carrots are probably going to take about 6 to 8 minutes. We have cut the carrots down to a nice uniform size. We're going to put them into this platter right here. Make our way to the steamer. Make sure they're uniform, just like your asparagus spears are the same size, because when you're steaming something, or if you're sauteing or grilling, you want everything the same size so that you get everything cooked nice and evenly and in the same amount of time. So let's make our way to the steamer. Have a towel or oven mitt in your hand. Check your water, make sure it's still boiling. And as before, we're placing what we can fit so that it's all exposed to the steam. You don't want to overload and put too much product. Nice even distribution. It's looking like we're full already. We don't want to put too much because then you won't have even cooking. So let's go ahead and put the top on and check back in about 5-6 minutes. Okay, so our carrots have been steaming for about 6 minutes now. It's time to check back on them and see if they're ready to go. Feeling tender, it's a good sign. An alternative to pulling them out one at a time would be to very carefully remove the colander portion of the steaming setup with your boiling water. When you do this, be very careful to have some dry towel protecting your hand, because as you see, steam is going to start releasing. And we'll come over here, and you can bring your carrots out carefully, like so. Go ahead and season them once again. If you don't want any seasoning, that's quite alright. Now that we've removed the carrots from the steamer and seasoned them, let's check out and see how they taste. Nice and soft. Fantastic. go great with a little bit of honey or maple syrup. But if you're keeping it simple, clean living, healthy living, or fulfilling a dietary restriction, steaming is a great way to cook vegetables and ensure that you're not adding any ingredients that could be harmful to individuals with any kind of special needs. We've got steamed spinach, which obviously cooks quickest of all three. Only took about 30 seconds to a minute. Asparagus, depending on the sizes of the spears, are going to take about 4 to 5 minutes. And carrots, depending on how you cut them, anywhere from 6 to 8 minutes. And folks, that's how you steam vegetables.